Jared here with CarBuzz.com, and as I take the long walk up this car's 195-inch wheelbase, I want to introduce you to the 2019 Toyota Avalon. Now, this is a full-size sedan, a segment that has been dying at the expense of crossovers. People just really don't want to buy these anymore, but that hasn't stopped Toyota from making this all-new Avalon one of the best it has ever produced. And the end result is basically, this ain't your granddad's Avalon anymore. The Avalon was a car exclusively driven by old people in Florida, but this just does not look like that car anymore. I mean, look at this big front end grille that you have going on here on this touring trim. You've got these cool LED headlights, and just look at these freaking awesome 19-inch wheels. I think these little spokes look like a surgeon's scalpel. I think they're some of the coolest wheels I've ever seen on a Toyota, let alone an Avalon. Now, I say that the full-size sedan is dying because it's pretty hard to even name cars that this thing competes against. You've got like the loosely related Chrysler 300 and Dodge Charger, but those are rear-wheel drive and those are actually really old. You've got the Maxima, which is new-ish, but like it's got that CVT, so it doesn't really do that whole four-door sports sedan thing that they say. You probably forgot that the Kia Cadenza exists, and there really isn't that much left in the segment besides that. So yeah, it's a very small, dwindling segment. Crossovers are just a lot more popular, but I think that this Toyota is really good. Something that you should maybe look at if you haven't even considered looking at a full-size sedan. So we're gonna go ahead and get it out on the road, but before we do, be sure to check the link in the description to see more deals on the 2019 Toyota Avalon over on CarBuzz.com. Let's go ahead and drive it. So now we're behind the wheel of the Avalon, one of the final beacons of the full-size sedan, to see how it drives. Now, let's talk a little bit about what's going to be under the hood. There's really only two options you can get. You have the one engine that we have here. It's a 3.5-liter V6 engine. It's the same one that you're gonna get in the Camry. Toyota calls it the 2GR FKS. Basically what that means is you're gonna have 301 horsepower, which is a lot for this category, and a lot for the mid-size category as well. And then you've got 267 foot-pounds of torque, which is okay, but a little low on that number. Most of the trims are going to have that engine available. 0 to 60 is going to be 6.1 seconds, which is a little bit slower than the 0 to 60 time on the Camry, which makes sense. It's the same engine, but in a heavier car. This one weighs about 3,700 pounds, so it makes sense that the Avalon would be a little bit slower in that respect. I believe the last Camry I tested was around 5.7, 5.8 seconds to 60 miles an hour. So the Avalon comes in 4 trim levels, 3 of which are available as that gas engine, or you can also get a hybrid. So the hybrid engine is a 2.5-liter 4-cylinder mated to Toyota's second-generation hybrid system. And it develops 215 horsepower, which is 10 less than the outgoing Avalon. I actually tested one of those Avalons. I haven't driven this new one yet, but I suppose 10 extra horsepower is not a bad thing whatsoever. So why would you want to take that huge drop in horsepower from 301 down to 215? Well, the answer is very simple. The car I'm driving has MPG figures of 22 in the city, 31 on the highway, and 25 combined, which is not bad. I've actually been averaging 24 MPG combined so far, which is pretty darn good. But that hybrid is going to get you 43 in the city, 43 on the highway. Same in both categories. Toyota doesn't rate the torque on their hybrid systems for whatever reason. But yeah, that is a very, very good number. So if you're getting any of the trims except for this one that I'm in, the touring trim, you can also opt for that hybrid engine if that's what you'd prefer. The cost of doing that is going to be about $1,000 extra. If you want the hybrid, you'll probably save that back when you are paying for gas. But unless you're the type of person who's like driving from like Orlando to Miami. I had the previous generation car and I drove it from where I live in Orlando to Miami, and I did it like on a single tank with like tons to spare. I drove back up to Palm Beach, drove around there, and I still had gas remaining. So if you're doing a ton of driving, I recommend getting that hybrid. If not, I think I would recommend getting this gasoline engine one. I'm gonna go ahead and put it into its Sport Plus setting. The Touring trim is the only one that has that. The other cars are only gonna have Eco, Normal, Sport. This one also gives you a custom mode and a Sport Plus. And then I'm gonna go ahead and turn off the traction control. I doubt too many Avalon owners are gonna do this, but I wanna show you what it's like to launch. A lot of wheel spin, but it hooks up pretty easily. 8-speed automatic is very smooth with the gears. The engine is pretty rowdy when you're on throttle like that. Toyota has, I was reading the press release for this car because when I put it in sport mode, I could have sworn that I felt the suspension get a little firmer and that the engine was a little bit louder, and it turns out that my butt dyno and my ear dyno were actually correct. So this Touring trim that we're driving is the first Toyota to be sold with an adaptive suspension. So that's pretty cool. So when you do put it in those sport settings, it's gonna firm up a little bit to give you a little bit more feel from the seat of your pants. It's not like super uncomfortable, so don't worry about like it ruining the ride on your big cushy sedan. And then also when I put my foot down, you really hear that V6 in the cabin. It's pretty darn throaty all on its own, but Toyota has talked a lot about how they've tuned the exhaust on this car so that when you start it up, when you do a cold start, it'll sound like really darn good. And then when you get on it, on the full throttle, it'll pump in a little bit of that sound to just make it sound even better when you're on it. So yeah, I think it's a pretty good sounding engine. If you're one of those people that just doesn't trust 4-cylinder turbos, whether it be for reliability or you don't like the way they sound, this V6 is excellent. It's probably going to run forever. It's super smooth, super powerful. The 8-speed automatic transmission is very good, always sending power to the front wheels. You cannot get all-wheel drive on any Avalon trim. I think that's kind of a disadvantage. I'm not sure why Toyota hasn't thought to put all-wheel drive on any of its TNGA platform cars like this, the Camry. I think that would help them sell a little bit more. And the other big disadvantage here is that if I go ahead and throw it into its quote manual mode, I say quote manual mode because it's not a true manual mode. As you can see, like I have it in S3 right now. If I pull the paddle now, like a couple times, it'll default to whatever gear you've set it to. So I'm right now cruising in S5. That just means it won't go above 5th gear. So theoretically, you could drive this almost like a manual. So I just tap down into 4th, into 3rd, and basically that's gonna keep it in that gear. So now it won't go above 3. But if I was driving in S6, it would go all the way to 6. So it's still gonna kind of act like an automatic. You can sort of kind of get it to behave like a manual, but not so much. Toyota really hasn't, at least on any of the cars I've driven, included a full manual mode on any of their front-wheel drive based vehicles. But the drive modes do exactly what you think. I'm gonna go ahead and put it back into its normal mode. You also have your custom mode where you can adjust like the powertrain delivery, the climate control, stuff like that. Not too many things to adjust, but it's definitely fun to play with, and I think the eco mode is pretty interesting. That really dials back the throttle, makes this car feel a lot slower than it actually is, but that'll help you get good fuel economy. And this car comes with a ton of standard safety features. It's called, Toyota calls it Toyota Safety Sense. In short, if you see it on the options list, it'll be called TSS-P. That basically just means the Toyota Safety Sense, and that's going to give you a ton of active and passive safety features. You've got the pre-collision system with pedestrian detect. You've got dynamic radar cruise control that can bring you all the way to a full stop. Lane departure alert with steering assist, automatic high beams, blind spot monitors, and rear cross traffic alert with a backup guide monitor. That's a ton of stuff right there. This one that we're driving only has one additional option package for $1,150. That's the advanced safety package. That's going to give you a 360-degree camera to help you park, and that's also going to come with some clearance sonar systems and rear cross traffic alert. So yeah, not too bad in terms of options. Toyota really wants you to just kind of pick your trim level, be done, maybe have like one option level there. So in terms of how this car drives, I'm finding it pretty difficult to find fault with it. The steering is pretty accurate. I mean, it's pretty light. It's not the most precise you're ever going to feel, but come on, this is a full-size mainstream sedan. It's not gonna feel like the new Supra. So I think you're really gonna enjoy this. And if you're like me and you just really prefer a sedan to a crossover, I think you're gonna be very impressed with how this new Avalon drives. I drove the old Avalon and that was a doughy thing at best. Bad steering, just real lackadaisical on the suspension. This one, while it's no sports sedan, I promise you're not going to be hugely disappointed if you want to try and have a little bit of fun in this car. And look at that wheel spin. Yeah, it's not bad. 301 horsepower, gets pretty lively sometimes. And again, so Toyota made major improvements with how this car drives, but they also really strayed out of their comfort zone when it comes to this interior. This interior, more so than any other Toyota I've driven recently, just really strays from Toyota's norms. So let's go ahead and pull over and take a look at it. All right, so let's take a look at the Avalon's interior, which is a radically different space than what we've seen from Toyota in the past. I really can't remember any Toyota vehicle looking even remotely like this. We have very unique layout of everything, different materials all throughout, very different than what we've seen from Toyota in the past. But let's start off with something that is going to be pretty familiar up here in the gauge cluster. Got your simple gauges with a little helper screen here in the middle. The steering wheel controls are pretty much identical to what you're going to be finding on a Camry. So here I have the trip computer showing my fuel economy. You can have it showing like an eco indicator with like your distance to empty. This car will get well over 300 miles on a tank, which is pretty good. You can have a digital speedometer. You can have all of your driving aids up here, your radio controls, your system status for your tire pressure and for your safety systems. You can adjust all of these settings here, and you can have any warning lights up here. Pretty simple, but it does display a good amount of information. You also have on the steering wheel controls for the audio volume, and you have your adaptive cruise control settings over here and your lane keep assist. The steering wheel itself on this touring trim is this nice perforated leather. It feels very nice, very soft. I think the Camry might have had the same materials, but this does feel pretty upscale. The one area that does feel slightly cheap, but not too cheap, are these paddle shifters. They are just some flat black plastic. If you do get a Lexus ES350, which is based on this car, Lexus usually has a tendency to cover these with like a silver paint just to make them feel a little bit more premium. Now let's go ahead and talk about this interesting center stack. All right, so looking at the center stack, you have a pretty big-ish screen, but it's not huge compared to the luxury automakers that have like really wide displays, but this is pretty large, pretty accessible, very easy. You've got all of your controls here on the touch screen, so you can go into apps. This is where the Entune suite is. I don't really love Entune because it requires you to have a separate app on your phone, and then like it has to connect with like different accounts and whatever. Just give me Android Auto and Apple CarPlay and I'm happy. This one has 50% of that. It does have the Apple CarPlay, but since I have an Android phone, I'm basically screwed. I can't use my phone with this system, which is also fine because it has a pretty decent map quality touchscreen, very easy to navigate, and it does have voice commands as well for that. You can see I have this sort of white layout. You can actually change that. There's different themes. So here's like more of a darker setting. Here's like a dark with like a red setting. I've actually found that I like this sort of lighter setting. When I go ahead and put the car into reverse, you're gonna see I have my main backup camera, but I have the 360-degree camera as well, which is optional. I can also change the different camera angles. I can also, if I'm not engaging reverse, but I'm just sort of parking, there's a little view button off to the left of the steering wheel that'll engage this sort of 360-degree camera. You can also change it so that you can kind of see where the curbs are. I think that's pretty cool. I found a similar system in the Lexus LS 500, which of course is a more expensive car. So I think it was a little bit better graphically than this, but it's still pretty cool. And just like on the LS 500, you can actually change the color of your Toyota Avalon based on what color you have in real life. So I have it changed to this nice gray. Now, below this infotainment system, you're going to have all of your climate control functions down here, pretty nicely arranged. I'm happy that Toyota got rid of the touch capacitive buttons on the old Avalon. You can see there's a bunch of shortcut buttons all around the screen if you don't want to use the touch screen. Same thing with the climate controls. They're pretty easy to understand. The only thing that is a little bit annoying here is that if you'll notice when I click on stuff, it takes like half a second to get there. There's the menu, like setup. There it is. It's just a little bit slow compared to the other systems. Toyota isn't really like cutting edge in this category, but it does work fairly well. So down here, Toyota has also done a little bit of a different layout here when it comes to the cup holder area. So right here you have this nice soft padded, it's covered in what feels like leather. It does slide open to reveal a little storage area, and if you do have wireless charging on your phone, you can put your phone in there and it will wirelessly charge. I can't tell you how that works though, because my Google Pixel does not have wireless charging built in. You've got your controller for the 8-speed automatic transmission with PRND, and then tap over here for S, which is also going to give you your manual settings, which can also be controlled via the paddle shifters. You have all of your controls for Eco, Normal and Custom, and then Sport and Sport Plus with your electronic parking brake. And you also have the auto hold function, which will hold you in when you come to a stop at stoplights, and then you just tap the gas and you'll be moving forward. Now, one other interesting thing Toyota did here with this nice leather padding here over the cup holders is you can see this cup holder is circular, but this one sort of has like a flat edge here. That's because Toyota expects you to put your phone in it and it just kind of rests there flat. Really clever for Toyota to just realize, like let's give them another area where their phone will just fit pretty perfectly. Then if you slide open this center console, it actually flips open. You have some storage space with two charging USB ports and then another one to plug in your phone for Apple CarPlay. So 3 USBs up front and another wireless charging point up here. So you could charge up to 4 devices up here, which is pretty darn good. Now, I only have one complaint about this dashboard because I think it looks pretty good and it's pretty well arranged, but I don't love how in their attempt to make this whole center stack seem like it's floating in midair, they have these just crappy plastic bits right here. It's a minor complaint, but this is probably the cheapest plastic I feel in the entire interior, which is a letdown because the rest of the interior is full of really nice soft touch leather materials, but this is just really cheap plastic. And if it just wasn't here, this would look really cool, like it was floating in midair, and I would have better access to the wireless charger here. All right, so now I'm in the back. The Toyota Avalon is a very large car. It's got a 113-inch wheelbase, which gives it plenty of room in the back, plenty of headroom too. It's not like sloped off like a coupe. It does have like an extra bit of cutout space, so even your very large adults are going to be extremely comfortable back here. Just look at how far I can just slide down like this, and my knees are still barely touching the front seat here. You have this pretty basic center armrest. You do have your climate control vents right here, just a very basic on-off. You don't actually get to control the temperature from back here, but you do have heated seats and 2 additional USB ports for charging. So that gives you the ability to charge up to 6 devices with the wireless charger included in this car, which is more than you can actually have occupants in the car, which is pretty darn impressive. Toyota has also included this little iPad holder. It just kind of opens up and lets you clip in an iPad. I think that's pretty smart not to include some sort of built-in infotainment back here that's just going to age poorly. Just let the kids clip their iPad and be done with it. So as far as rear legroom, this does feel a heck of a lot bigger than the Toyota Camry. However, the Honda Accord is so big now that it actually has the same rear leg space as the Avalon. So that might be something to think about. You could save money and get the Accord if all you needed was the rear legroom. Now let's go ahead and check out the trunk, which is again bigger than the Camry, but not necessarily great compared to the midsize Accord. All right, so back here we have some really contoured, cool looking designs because as I mentioned before, this ain't your granddad's Avalon. This is a heck of a lot cooler. You've got this cool sort of brake light cross design, sort of like you'd get on a four-wheel drive 911. It's been a staple of the Avalon for quite a long time. Because we have the Touring, we've got this black spoiler here. We've got this cool sort of carbon fibery looking Touring badge, and we've got plenty of trunk space here. If I go ahead and open it up, we've got just over 16 cubic feet of storage, which is bigger than the smaller Camry. You have this cargo net here. The only thing is though, 16 cubic feet of storage is actually a little bit less than what you'll get on the mid-size Honda Accord. So that's less of an indictment of the Avalon and just more of a statement on how good the Accord just happens to be right now, but you do have plenty of trunk space here, and if you pull some tabs in there, it will fold down the rear seats as well. And while I'm back here, I wanted to mention it's got a true dual exhaust system with these quad tips, and oh boy, Toyota wasn't lying when they said they tuned this to sound really good on startup. Take a listen. All right, so now it's time to price out our Toyota Avalon Touring, which is the most expensive of the Avalon trims. Basically, you're going to have 4 different trim levels, 3 of which are available as the hybrid for an additional $1,000, but the Touring trim is only available with that V6. So starting off with the XLE trim, that's $35,500. That's going to get you an Entune 9-inch touchscreen with Apple CarPlay. You're going to get the Toyota Safety Sense technology as standard and an 8-speaker audio system. Stepping up to the XSE for $38,000, which is among the sportier of the Avalon trims. You basically have the LE and limited trims as the luxurious ones, and the XSE and touring trims as the sporty ones. So the XSE gives you 19-inch wheels, aluminum trim on the interior, black accents like a spoiler on the exterior, a moonroof, paddle shifters, aluminum pedals, and a sport-tuned suspension. The limited is the highest priced of the luxury Avalons. So that one's going to get you LED headlights with auto on, wood trim, heated and ventilated perforated leather seats, and the Entune 3.0 system, which is upgraded with built-in navigation and a 14-speaker JBL audio system, which I think sounds okay, but not great. Then we've got the Touring trim, which is the most expensive Avalon you can get. That's the one we're driving here. That's going to also come with LED headlights with auto on. You're going to get the adaptive suspension, the engine sound enhancement. You're going to also get the Entune 3.0 system with nav and JBL, and then you're going to get partial suede seats with heating and ventilation. Now, based on the cars I've driven, I think the Touring trim is the one to get because of the way the option packages work. I think it is the best looking of the Avalons. I just love the wheels on it especially, and the only thing you're going to need to add to that to get to the as tested price of this car is the $1,150 advanced safety package with a 360-degree camera, clearance, sonar, and rear cross traffic alert. I think that's worth it, and it brings the as-tested price to $42,200, or a little bit above that with the advanced safety package. I think this is a pretty good value. It's not that much more than the equivalent Camry, and if you need the extra trunk and rear leg space, I think this is a nice upgrade over the midsize Camry. So let's sum up our time with the 2019 Toyota Avalon. So As a sedan, I really like this car. I think it is much improved over a Camry. I like the better interior. I think this does look a little bit softer than the Camry. If you want something more aggressive, you might as well save money and get the Camry. The only problem that this car has is that the mid-size segment has become so good. You've got cars like the Honda Accord that are almost as big as this car, even though they sit in a category down in terms of size. So that's the only problem with the Avalon, but I do really like it despite that, which is why I'm going to be giving it a CarBuzz score of great buy. I think it is a nice alternative to an SUV if you just want to keep the sedan alive. I love its smooth powertrain and I love its aggressive looks, and I wouldn't hesitate to recommend it. And if you've liked this review and you'd like to see more, be sure to subscribe to the CarBuzz YouTube channel and download our apps on iOS and Android to keep up with all of the latest and greatest in automotive news and to see more reviews just like this one. Hope you've enjoyed the video. See you next time.